Alright, 1 second, let me do that. I think that's better. Punch in a tad. Yeah, that's good enough. Alright, what is up? Welcome back to another video. This is a re-recorded segment that I'm doing while I kind of put this back together really quickly, and then I've got some other stuff to work on. But we're not going to be talking about the repair stuff, but I'm going to be doing repair things, so you know, maybe you can learn a thing or two, or maybe not, who knows. I do want to talk about something that I've been talking about quite a bit lately. My last couple videos on this channel have been more like buying related stuff, and I think that's just because that's been where my mind is at lately, and the videos tend to do pretty well, so obviously trying to get a little bit more content out there and get more people watching and stuff. And then also I do think that I have a unique perspective, being that I've used in some capacity most of the more popular cameras out there, and then also the details of cameras that I know about are a little bit more in depth than most other people would. Take that for what you will. I would say it's reasonably valuable, but at the same time I find myself getting angry at certain cameras for things that will affect literally no one besides me. So take what I say with a grain of salt, please and thank you, and we will now move on. So this video is kind of a buying guide for cameras in the year 2023, especially this quarter of it, end of summer, kind of moving into autumn. Although I will say it's been hotter up here the last couple of days than it was all of summer, so I don't know what the hell that means, but yeah. Just a little buying guide if you're looking to get into film photography. I think this is one of the best times to do it in terms of an annual schedule, because over the summer, like, everybody's trying to shoot film, so a lot of like the local labs up here have much more volume that they're pumping through, so it's harder to get like your film developed in a timely manner, and this, that, and the other, which is all kind of little stuff. But I think on the downswing of that, moving to the fall time, yeah, you're gonna be losing a little bit of light, especially up here. It gets dark at like 3 p.m. pretty much, but I do think that the light is much better to shoot with. I think that there's much more variance in shadow, structure, detail, and stuff. It's just it's a better time, in my opinion, to be shooting any kind of photography, really, but especially film. I just find it to be more visually pleasing. So I think that this is a good time to start. I think any time you start is a good time to start. Any time that you feel so inclined to get into it. All that I basically did here was just replace the brass plunger because it fell out and I didn't put it in yesterday. So this camera's not completely done, so that's why I'm not putting all of the screws in, because one, I don't have them presently, and two, I think I need to take this apart once more, potentially. I'm not 1000% sure. But anyway, I digress. So getting into film photography now, great time as any. The only problem is that the market for cameras and for film in general is how do you say, sparse? It's very sparse at the moment and expensive. It is going to be an investment. In fact, I did a little research, and basically by research, what I did was I just went on eBay. And now a lot of people say like, oh, why would you do that? Like, eBay's terrible with this, that, the other, which is fair. Like, eBay is not the best platform for most things. However, I will say, in terms of buying film cameras, it's my go-to, because what you're going to find is a market that has just enough competition to make it viable. Meaning there's enough on there from enough different users, you're not going to be looking at prices that are obscene and that are unrealistic. Whereas something like Amazon sellers of film cameras, that's like a pretty selective group of people, and they all kind of have secret agreements with one another that, like, this is what we're going to sell this camera at, like, this is the cost. And to some degree, it comes in pros and cons. On Amazon, there are higher costs. However, there's a little bit more due diligence. However, as my history of working in a facility that had an Amazon partnership, the quality was not as high as you would be led to believe. So, like, we would send stuff out that didn't work, and I would say, hey, maybe we should spend a little bit more time getting this to work. And my boss would be like, no, it's fine. It just has to last 30 days, and then they can't return it. So that's something to bear in mind. Not everybody's like that. I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that that happened enough times that I feel like it is worth mentioning. So going back to eBay, that's why I prefer it, because 9 times out of 10, the people that you're buying from, there are also, like, all the people that sell on Amazon also sell on eBay. So that's also something to be aware of. But eBay is a little bit more friendly to the buyer, I would think. So, and it's a little bit more affordable. So there's that. I usually just go off eBay. It's just easier, and you might find a good deal. So I just typed in film cameras. I had to use an incognito tab because my eBay algorithm is so askewed. It is just completely tailored to the just garbage that I usually look for, which is like broken cameras as cheap as I can find, this, that, and the other. So I did the incognito tab. I searched film cameras, and what came up, the first thing that came up was, believe it or not, an Instax Mini. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And I have an Instax Mini. I love it. I think it's great. I would really recommend that camera to just about anybody, because I do think it is one of my favorite cameras. It just continually brings me an abundance of joy that I don't receive from a lot of other cameras that I own. And in terms of film photography prices and stuff, you don't have to worry about the developing costs. Yeah, the film is like it'll work out to be about $1 a shot, I think. But you get the immediate satisfaction of getting an image back. It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing. That's pretty much it. And for that, I really do enjoy it. This is important. I'm glad I found that. For that, I really enjoy it. So I would say, like, in Instax Mini, if you just want to get like a little camera, like if you're just getting into film photography, maybe pick that up first and see if that's something that you kind of like. I would go for an Instax Mini over a point and shoot any day of the week. Like, genuinely. Especially the newer point and shoots, like the Kodak M35s, the Ilford version of that. Like, they're all the same camera, just with different brand names on it. They're all about $30. I would go for an Instax Mini personally. Yeah, you're not going to get the full experience of buying film, getting it developed and all this stuff, but for what it is, it's so much better, I think, personally. Sponsored by food? I'm just kidding. No sponsorships here. So that was the first thing that popped up. And then the next thing that popped up was a series of Canon AE1s, which is a very standard camera. I have one here. One second. Here it is. This is my Canon AE1. This is, I think, the last one that I bought, and it has a little bit of a ding right here. I did put new skins on it. But just think out loud. How much do you think I paid for this black Canon AE1? Okay, you're wrong. I paid $20 for it, thereabouts. It was very broken. I spent a lot of time fixing it, like a couple hours. Got it fixed. So there was a little bit of a asterisk on this next point that I'm going to make. But Canon A1s right now are going for anywhere from $100 to $200 for the body only, not including the lens. The other thing I was noticing too was that AE ones were being like sold intermingled. Like I could not look up AE1 without a bunch of AE1 programs popping up, and these are two completely different cameras. I would say an AE1 program might be like a better buy just because you get more for the same body style and stuff. I do prefer the AE1 because it's a little bit more robust, a little bit less electronically controlled. However, the AE1 program does have a program feature, which is really nice. And it also doesn't have a tungsten wire in it that is prone to snapping, thus just bricking the whole camera. So, pros and cons. But I don't think I would spend $200 on an AE1 personally. I think they're great cameras. I think that they deliver a lot. I think they're really great for beginners to use, but it has a mark against it. The same mark that the Pentax K1000 has, and that is that this is a consumer camera. This was like what a lot of students would use, what a lot of like people getting into photography would use. They would use these cameras, and so then it's just kind of in the zeitgeist of these are accessible cameras for beginners, so that demand skyrocketed. Because if you're getting into film photography, there are thousands of different cameras, and if your dad, mom, aunt, uncle, teacher, whatever friend is saying, hey man, those AE1s are pretty tight, or that K1000, that's a good buy, that's what you're going to go for. That's what a lot of people did, I presume, thus leading to these insane markups of $100 to $200. Now, I would say that this is a great camera. It's lasted 50-ish years, so like it's probably worth about $200, but I do think that there are just better systems out there, and I do think that stuff like this, which is more tailored to beginners, should not be $200 for the camera body itself. Now, if you have a camera and a lens, maybe $100, $150 thereabouts. But for just the body, especially some of the conditions that were out there, like there's some A1s that look pretty thrashed and they're selling for $200 untested. It's just like you're just buying a down payment on future disappointment. So I don't know what the deal is there, but it is what it is. So going back to the K1000, this is another favorite of mine. It's beauteous. I love it so much. $200, body only, $200. Ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. This should be like, it's a mechanical tank of a camera. It should be not that much. It should be like maybe 100 with a lens. And you're thinking like, oh, that's insane. Like, what would it be that cheap? All this stuff. Well, let me point you to an example. This camera, fully mechanical, top speed of 1/1000th of a second, hence the 1000 and K1000, has the Pentax K mount. It's great. An alternative to this, I've said in the past, would be like an FTB thereabouts, or an FT, something along those lines. It's more of the Canon variation of this, full body mechanical, has a decent lens mount, and has a couple other features. However, I would also point to the Canon TX. This is a pretty much one for one, in my opinion, of the K1000 to the Canon TX. So let's talk about this for a minute. I made a video about this in the past, just about how basic it is and how simple it is, and that was how Canon marketed it, was simple. So not really much to talk about. Oh, there's a self-timer? Psych. It's just a stop-down lever, which is fun. Has a top speed of 1/500th of a second, so a little bit slower, but still, it's going to get you what you need. Has a decent light meter, has a pretty nice advanced system here. These are going for $30, $60, like that range, 30 to 60. Maybe there's a couple that are like 75, but like super affordable for what is essentially a K1000 with a different brand on it. And yeah, there's a lot of variations here. The body similarity is more similar to an FTB, so it's like obviously different, but like stick with me here. $30, $30 to $170 cheaper than a K1000. You can take that $170 and buy like 10 rolls of film. So immediately you're off to a better start. This is where I would say spend your money here. And then the next one I'll talk about is an ME Super, which is the one I'm working on currently. This range was a little bit different because they're kind of going anywhere from 70 to 200 thereabouts. And it's kind of weird. It depends a lot on the quality of the camera. For these, I would say it is probably safer to spend a little bit more, just given the amount of problems they can have. So if you get a cheaper one, like, it's more likely to have infinite winding issues. It's more likely to develop electrical issues. This one is having an issue with the frame counter just deciding it didn't want to work. So I'm having to figure that out. It's super fun. I love it so much. Anyway, so 70 to 200, that's a little bit steep. Like, I will buy an ME Super for like 15 bucks and I'll be like, oh, that's a good deal. And then, yeah, I do spend hours fixing it or whatever. But that's my prerogative. The alternative to this would be just the standard ME. And yeah, you're going to miss out on the manual setting. It only has an auto. It has a flash sync speed of 1/100th of a second, I believe. And it's a little bit more pared down version, but for like $60 to $80, you miss out on the manual setting. I would say that's a pretty good deal. And again, that is money, like 40 bucks, 120 bucks, whatever, that you could save and use to buy more film. And you could buy development, all this stuff. So like anything you can kind of cut out of your budget from the film camera buying, you can then put into the film itself. Which is why I think it's so silly that the cameras are going up in price, because it doesn't really matter too much what camera body you have. So long as it works and so long as you feel comfortable using it, so long as you feel inspired when you look at it, you're like, oh, I want to go shoot because I have this camera. It shouldn't really matter what you have. It matters more about the film itself. And obviously there's gonna be different stipulations to that and stuff like that, but for the widespread, that's kind of the point I'm trying to get at. And that leads me to my next point, which is this absolute behemoth. This is a whole lot of camera here. Minolta SRT 202. Just a beautiful stallion right here of a camera. 51.4 lens, SRT 202, one of the best Minolta cameras I think ever, in my opinion. Best shutter sound in the game, and that's like not even, like, listen to this. I mean, just sounds good. So this cost me $30, okay? 30 bucks. This is a lot of camera for $30, and I'm going to make a separate video on this because it is well worth talking about. But these cameras, the SRT series, are fantastic. Again, it is a mechanical camera. It is the perfect beginner camera. 80 to 150 is the price range right now. $80 for a camera and a lens with a great top speed of 1/1000th of a second. Has a really accurate light meter, has an aperture preview, has all of these professional settings, a stop down lever, a self timer, has a nice metal build so you don't have to worry about breaking it anytime you look at it the wrong way. The 150 one that I found was a black SRT 101, perfect condition, nice glossy black paint. It was beautiful. I almost got it because it was like 150 bucks. That's insane, but I don't need more cameras. So if you see it, go buy it, please. And then tell me how let me live vicariously through you. Anyway, those are great. I don't talk about Minoltas enough because the later versions, the electrical ones, the X700s, the Maxima 7000s are some of my least favorite cameras. The XGM, the XG7, the XG1, not a huge fan. X570, the X370, and then all of the ones succeeded by that, whatever. Not my favorite, but still pretty good. The SRTs, beautiful cameras, great lens mount, super cheap glass. You can buy a bunch of different lenses if you want, and it's such a good deal for your money. And then leads me to the next point of not good deal for your money would be the Nikons. Those are just always going to kind of be expensive. The one exception would be a Nikon EM, and come in close here, okay? Let me just lay this out for you. There's a lot of cameras in this world that I hate. The Olympus OM10, one of my least favorites. The Maxim 7000, I despise. The X700, can't stand. Nothing fills me with more rage and infuriation than the Nikon EM. I think the Nikon EM is an absolute plague on society. I think that the Nikon EM, if it was just be washed from existence, my life would be probably about 10% better. But the fact that I know it exists tanks my life. I'm just kidding. It is just a horrid, horrid camera. And it has the 3 settings of bulb, M90, and auto, and at any given time one of those will just stop working, and it just doesn't matter. I've spent hours and hours like weeks fixing one EM to get it to work on 2 of the settings that it wasn't working on. Like, it was working perfectly fine on M90. So I fixed the bulb setting, I fixed the auto setting, and then it stopped working on M90. It will refuse to work. It is a plastic piece of consumer trash. Stay away from the Nikon EM. Pretty much stay away from Nikons because the cost to entry for them is just kind of expensive. An FE to an FM, which is an FM is a great camera if they work. That's going to be about $150 to $200, and the glass is going to be really expensive because Nikon glass is pretty high quality. So jumping into that, it's going to be a pretty steep entry point. And I would say if you're just starting film photography, you might want to go for a lower ended camera, see if it's something that you like, and then when you feel more comfortable, invest more money into it. I will say the Nikon F3 is one of my favorite cameras. I've really been enjoying that. It makes me excited to shoot film, but you might not find that. I will say that the Nikon F4s are really affordable, which leads me to my next point of autofocus 35mm SLRs. There's a bunch of them. All of the Canon Rebel series are really good. Have the EF class, which is awesome. The Nikon ones are pretty good as well. The N80 is one of the ones I started out with, and I got it for free. Like, you can find an N80 on the side of the road. The only problem is that Nikon's back door latches on those broke all the time, so be wary of that. The Minolta ones are kind of trash. The Olympus one that they had is the worst thing in the world. And then the Pentax ones are pretty good, but they do have an issue with the motor that they use to drive, I think it was the Film Advance, has a plastic gear that breaks often. So when that happens, your camera's bricked. So if you want to do the 35mm autofocus SLR, I would stick with Canon stuff primarily because it's the most affordable. It's like they're everywhere. I think it's the XI, the Rebel XI is my personal favorite. It has a great grip on it. It has kind of a faulty back door sometimes, like some of them will be broken off. So just if you're buying off eBay, make sure you look through the pictures of those. But I got one for like $20 like a year ago. And you can still find them for like $20. And then you just have to get like a 51.8, which those are pretty affordable. Or you can just get like any old EF mount, which there's plenty of them because that is like Canon's predominant lens mount up until like the last couple of years. So I would say that would be my go-to. And that was why I wanted to re-record this video, is because I failed to mention the autofocus SLRs previously, but there is substance behind them. Like, there is quality cameras there that nobody's talking about because everyone kind of wants the retro look, which I totally get. So I would say, like, if you want the retro look, go for like a Minolta, go for a Canon TX, do something like that. And if you want something a little bit more modern, easier to use with an onboard flash, go for one of the Canon autofocus SLRs. I think they're personally pretty great. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think the primary takeaway I would have would be, make sure you read the listing, know where you're buying it from. If you choose to buy something from Japan, that's probably a safe way to go. A lot of the companies over there have really high standards. Some of them don't, but a lot of them do. And they're usually really good about shipping it out on time. And if you're buying from somewhere in the US, I would say try to find like just an individual selling their stuff. Some of the shops are pretty good, but then others are a little bit more scammy. So just something to be aware of there. And yeah, if you have any questions about particular cameras, comment down below. Let me know. I'd love to share my thoughts on them. This was just kind of a rough overview of like stuff that I was seeing and just some thoughts I've been having. The other thing I also failed to mention is Spotmatics, Pentax Spotmatics. That's one of my favorite cameras. I really recommend those to anybody because they're bulletproof pretty much. It's a K1000 with a different lens mount. However, the prices of those are going up much more than I'd like them to, I'll admit, but they are still pretty solid cameras. So if you can find one for like 50 bucks, I would say go for it. The lenses are super affordable. The light meter just won't work probably. But if you have a phone, get an app to meter things and it'll give you a little bit more of a integrated experience with film photography that you wouldn't get otherwise if you had like an ME Super where you just run it on auto all the time like I did. It just kind of, it separates you from like the tangible feeling of shooting film. I have a meeting here in a minute. Nope, I don't. Not my meeting. Anyway, so those are my recommendations thus far. If you have any questions, again, please comment down below. If I missed anything, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it as always. I think that'll do it. So I will talk to you later. Oh, and don't buy an OM10. They're trash. All right. Thank you again. Catch you on the next one.